and Colby's with us. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see everybody. It's what a beautiful spring day. We hope to not make this meeting too long for you, but we appreciate you coming back for this special meeting. And before we get started, I'm going to ask Heather to take the roll, please.
Yes, Dr. Mohammed Babar. Mr. Ronald Beal.
Here.
Hold on a second. There we go. Mr. Colby Burks.
Here.
Mr. Eric Ferris.
Here.
Miss Lori Harper. She said she may have issues joining here at the beginning, but she may be joining us later. Miss Karen Hoover.
Here.
Mr. Lucas Spencer.
Here.
It's time.
Miss Christy Nelson.
Here.
Mr. Richard Nelson.
Here.
Miss Vidya Ravichandran. Mr. Madison Silvert.
Here.
Dr. Robert Statt.
Here.
Miss Doris Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Kevin Weaver.
Here.
Miss Carol Wright.
Here.
Commissioner Jason Glass. Okay, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Heather. At the last meeting, we're going to do a correction here in a second on our November dates. We have a technical correction, but as you all know, this special meeting was called for two main purposes. One is to approve or not the mandatory tuition and fee recommendations. The second is to elect a chair and vice chair for this board. But before we do that, we had a technical correction that we found after our last meeting, after we approved all the dates for the academic next year. And those dates that we have to correct is actually in November. You approved the dates of November 8th and 9th, but it was supposed to have been the 4th and the 5th. So, you know, we're hoping that you're still available for those dates. I will take a motion for approval to change those dates, please.
So moved. This is Richard.
Who's second?
I'll second. Eric.
And Eric. Do we have any discussion over that technical change? All in favor, say aye.
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 Great. Okay, you know, the Finance Committee met on Tuesday and it was a great discussion. I have to tell you, it was a very healthy discussion. Not only did we get a chance to talk about just the tuition and fees, but also, in fact, talk about a little bit about what it means to have affordability. I want to appreciate Richard and several folks who chimed in, Eric and others, Colby, that talked about that. And so those are the kind of meetings I enjoy, because I think it gives us a chance to talk real good policy. There was a quorum and the committee met and approved the staff's recommendation, but I'd like to ask Eric to go ahead and present what the committee approved.
Thank you, President Thompson. As he just said, we had a quite long meeting. It was very, very thorough. The staff did an outstanding job of outlining the factors, and those included all the federal relief funding that the institutions are to receive and have received in relation to the pandemic, the COVID-19 costs, and the foregone revenue figures at the institutions, the estimated increase in fixed and unavoidable costs at the campuses in the coming fiscal year, including pension expenses at the comprehensive and at KCTCS institutions. We also looked at the enrollment trends over the last 7 years and the tuition rates over the last 20 years. And all that information has been provided to all of you in the onboard materials already. So following that overview, we had a very healthy discussion regarding the financial pressures at the campuses, as well as those that are felt by the families and students. And while not everyone was in favor of approving the recommendation, the majority did vote in favor of the following recommendation. And that was the approval of resident undergraduate tuition and mandatory fee ceilings for academic years 21-22, 22-23 that equate to a maximum base rate of no more than 3% over 2 years, and a maximum increase of no more than 2% in any 1 year. That's for the public research and comprehensive universities. The maximum base rate increase for the students attending KCTS institutions would be no more than $5 a credit hour over 2 years, and a maximum increase of no more than $3 per credit hour in any 1 year. In addition, the public institutions are going to be allowed to submit for council review and approval non-resident undergrad tuition and fee rates that comply with the council's tuition and mandatory fees policy, or otherwise adhere to the provisions of any existing memorandum of understanding between the council and that institution, and market competitive tuition and fee rate guidelines for graduate and online courses. I'm going to add that the fact that the committee wasn't unanimous, I think, is actually a goal for all boards and commissions. One of those who did vote in favor of the recommendation was our student representative, Colby Burks, and Colby's asked to make some additional comments to the council today. So Colby, I'll turn it over to you.
I appreciate it. And I don't want to take up much of anybody's time on it anymore, but I just thought the student representative voting in favor of any increase at all, just I owed kind of the people I represent to come on this meeting and explain my thought process behind it. And I don't want anybody to misconstrue it as an affirmation of how the General Assembly or universities have handled higher education in the past decade. I think the cost has been shifted towards students. I think that higher education has become increasingly unattainable for a number of reasons, whether that be fees or however so. So the only reason I really voted in favor of this increase is, one, I think that it is relatively low considered, especially considered what I would assume the university presidents themselves would ask for. On top of that, I think right now, which is still just the lack of funding, I hope that this year has marked the change in the General Assembly's focus and focus on funding higher education. But as of right now, I don't think that decreasing tuition or getting a stop loss any lower than that is going to have the desired effect, because I don't think the General Assembly has yet done their part to fill that gap. So I think if we lessened it more for a tuition rise, I think things like perhaps the institutional financial aid contribution would go down. And I just, again, not to take any much of anybody's time, but my focus on voting in favor of this, and I think I was the tie-breaking vote for it even in the committee, was not to say I think that funding, not that I think that higher education is fully attainable and the universities have a right to charge more, but merely by the fact that I don't think this is the time to yet decrease funding or decrease the tuition in higher education, because I don't think it'll have the desired effect. But that's all I had to say.
So President Thompson, I think the committee's recommendation constitutes a motion to adopt the recommendation.
Thank you, Eric and Finance Committee. That comes as a committee recommendation, so we just have to vote on it. The point I want to make in discussion, and I'm going to open it up for everybody else to add what they wanted to add. This was tough in many ways, without going into great detail. I don't think we made anybody happy with what we did. Simply because obviously there were folk asking for a lot more because the faculty hadn't had raises in a long time, a variety of other things. We did get 2% performance funding that we use for general funds. The stimulus money you can't use for general funds, but few universities got that and some didn't, to be honest with you. One of my priorities, as you all know, is affordability. And the inflation rate's 2.4%, but I still didn't think we could go that high. I didn't think we could put that on the backs of families and parents. However, I know some people thought it should be zero. So what this is a max of 3% ceiling that we set. Not everybody will go that much, obviously, so it'd be a lower than that, which is the lowest 2-year, as you all know, in the last 3 decades that we are doing. The reason why I like the 2-year is that it allows for better budgets on the campus. It allows for a way for us to mitigate tuition, if you will, over that length of time. And it allows us to also make the argument that we are looking at families and students around affordability. The other piece, as you all know, about close to 45% of every tuition dollar goes back to the student in form of aid on the campus. So, but I think any tuition raise is problematic. No tuition raise is problematic. So we looked at and talked to a whole lot of folks and looked at a lot of data. So this is what we are recommending, and I appreciate the Finance Committee approving it. And I will shut up unless you have questions of me or the Finance Committee, and just open it up for discussion.
Well, I think maybe I'll just go ahead and make a motion because we certainly.
With such high unemployment in the last 15 months, many businesses that have shut down, many people who are struggling, just regular Kentuckians trying to make ends meet. That's part of the context of this discussion of increasing tuition. The other part is the perception that higher ed is unaffordable. Costs continue to increase. Now, increasing the tuition, that bolsters or it fortifies that perception that higher ed is continuing to be out of reach. Of course, the student loan debt that has been accrued, I mean, the average student loan debt is high. I think that increasing the tuition further fortifies that perception. But those are the two biggest things. The final thought, and I won't share everything that I went into at the meeting. It was a very good discussion, very lively, good spirited discussion. But one of the priorities of CPE is to maintain affordability. And I don't think I have the answer. I'm sure that the staff has probably thought about this longer and harder than I have. But that really is important that we do maintain the affordability in reality. But then also part of that equation is the perception of affordability. And that's why I cast a no vote. I just wanted to share my perspective with you. I love all of you, respect all of you, and just wanted to share that with you before we do vote on this. So thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Richard. I do want to say Vidya has joined us. I saw your face there, Vidya. Glad to have you with us. Other discussions or statements?
I was pleased to see this rate. Frankly, I looked back at our 10-year inflationary rate of higher ed, which sits at just shy of 40%. And to be able to see a rate over the next 2 years that is lower than our traditional rate over the last 10 years, I think was quite good to see. I also sit on an advisory board for the Federal Reserve in St. Louis, and that target inflationary rate is 2.5% for this year. That's what they hope for. I think there are a lot of questions as to whether or not that'll be achieved right now, but President Bullard there still believes that that's where we'll be this year. And so being able to see a rate that no matter what happens will be below a targeted rate of inflation is quite unusual for higher education. It's certainly unusual based on our 10-year average. And so if there is a softened blow for that, I think it's that how it relates to the rest of the economy, and how it's a slower inflationary rate than what's being targeted and what we've been seeing historically. So from that perspective, I'm supportive of it.
Thank you, Madison. I have to say, a couple of days ago or yesterday, I don't remember what day it is now, I was the keynote speaker for the Philadelphia Fed's conference. So I'll come to your neck of the woods next time. How about that?
We'd love that.
Yeah. Other
I'd like to jump in just a little bit here with some of the numbers that the staff put together. This increase of 2% for 1 year, 1% for another, or a total of 3% does not at all cover the fixed costs. So the universities are coming out even farther behind. And it's with tuition not going up much, the universities are hurting in general for the dollars. And speaking from the faculty standpoint, many faculty across the state would like to have a raise, which they haven't had in some time. And I remind everybody that our faculty across the state are in the bottom quartile of salaries nationwide and regionally.
Dr. Stout, I have to tell you, without going in great detail here, there's a lot of points, but one of the things I had to take a look at was that we're having a brain drain of people that are given faculty raises in other places, because we have in the last several years kept tuition extremely low, and there's been cuts, obviously. So that is, in fact, true. I mean, the stated fixed cost is closer to that 2.4, 2.5%, just the fixed cost. So we're not even suggesting covering that. Other statements.
I would just say that, I mean, if you look at this from a business perspective, whether it's, maintaining the physical plant on campus, I mean, the cost for everything and just supply chain issues that are real today for businesses, and then increased labor expenses to compete for talent. I mean, even if it's just who's going to serve the food on campus, in the cafeteria for these students. I mean, you either can't find help or it's more expensive. So, I mean, I look at this as a modest increase. It's my hope. I mean, I'd rather have no increase, but it is my hope that these universities are going to start thinking outside the box, that this pandemic has been, a reason for them to look at how we're going to offer different avenues for education and, control the cost, the ever increasing cost to maintain the physical plant, in-person classes, all of the traditional aspects, because the economy's changing, education's changing, and as much as maybe sending zero ability to increase might have been an even stronger message, at the end of the day, I think they're going to have a hard time managing what they have in their hands with this minor increase based upon the changing dynamics in the local and global economies. So I'm going to vote for it. But at the end of the day, I mean, the message to our leaders and our campuses has to be, and must continue to be, that the traditional college experience that I had living on campus for 4 years, we've got to start thinking about how we're going to deliver education differently in a more affordable cost model. A huge physical plant and all of the, attributes of that are going to become, too expensive for us to bear in this ongoing economy. So just editorialized comments, but I plan to vote for it.
Yeah, I know we don't have time today, and I know all my staff saying, Aaron, be quiet, but Christy's making, I think, some other good policy statements. I mean, we have almost $8 billion in deferred maintenance that we have no money for. And so we're going to have to think of a variety of ways just because of that reason alone. But beyond the pandemic and beyond some of the other items, I think you're all going to be happy with what you're seeing we're doing with the campuses. I won't take up the time now, but I think Christy's statement toward that we can't, I don't know if y'all saw my tweet today, we can't go back to normal. Anyway, we don't want to go back to normal, and there's a lot of reasons why. But these are some, but I appreciate that statement, Christy, beyond your vote. I think your point is actually a targeted point. Other statements, questions?
I'd like to hit on what she said just really quick. I talked to you, Dr. Thompson, about students. It's not even the students that somehow find a way to pay for higher education. I think the only way we're going to continually funnel students into higher education institutions is if they feel like they're getting the bang for their buck, that their money's actually worth it and they're getting something out of it. And so I do hope that if the institutions choose to increase tuition this way, I think that they need to use it to go to those certain aspects that are going to make students get the most out of their money, whether that be faculty raises to keep faculty here so we don't experience brain drain. But that was my first point. And second point is I think it's just very reprehensible by the fact that we're talking about either raising tuition for students or universities not being able to afford things like faculty raises and their operating budgets and things like that. And I think that really goes to show how the General Assembly largely has ignored the importance of higher education for more than a decade, and the fact that their contribution to these institutions has decreased for so long. And like I said, I keep pointing back to, I hope this year is the mark where we can point to this in 10 years later and say that Kentucky General Assembly and government has started to make that change and focus more on higher education through funding. So I hope that change will happen, but I do think it is very reprehensible that we're now between tuition raises or universities not knowing how to pay for things. And I think that's a really sad reality that we're currently in. I think the CP is doing a great job of navigating and changing the way universities operate in order to work with what they have. But I wish we weren't in this situation at all. And I think the Board of Student Body Presidents and all these other groups, student groups, have been working a lot with the Rally for Higher Education every year. We've been meeting with different lawmakers, and we're not getting the support, I think, from lawmakers and legislators that we would like. We still have legislators that won't meet with us or say they'll never vote for an increase in higher education funding. And I keep a list just so I know who to be mad at all the time. But so I do think that in the next 10 years, I hope we see a very stark contrast to what situation we're in right now.
Obi, can I follow up just a little bit with what you're saying? And that is, I believe in the presentation, Finance Committee meeting or earlier, the last 10 years, we've seen from 70% of the budget being supported by the state down to 29% now. So that's a huge drop in state support over the last 10 years. And the costs of the universities are going up slightly, and the student ends up with the tuition increases. There's not much choice right now.
Well, I want to thank the governor and legislature for putting money in the budget last year, and we got it 2% along with the pension. Very happy with that, and we hope to replicate that this year. But that was the first time in 13 years since 2008. And so we've had a net cut of 20-something% to higher ed institutions. But CPE, our office is like 56-57% cut over that length of time, which is okay. We're managing that. The point made, though, is that this is about higher ed being a strategic input and output for the state. We've increased our credential output by 17.5% during this time, and almost 37% for underrepresented minorities. So we're closing gaps as fast or faster than any other state in the nation. So I do want to thank the campuses for doing with what they're doing. And by the way, we give more money every year. We give more money back to students in form of aid than we've ever done it. And so now all of our four-year campuses have a promise scholarship, if you will. If you're coming and you fall in a certain Pell eligible category, you will go free. And our community colleges are doing the same. That doesn't mean, though, that we can't still take into account the needs of our families and students. I mean, it is a shared responsibility, and for public comment, public record, I believe higher ed is a public good. And anyway, that's another statement. We don't want to take all day with my statements. Other statements, anybody else want to make?
Aaron, can I get you to give the statistic on unemployment and education levels?
Yeah, 90% of the people that were on unemployment during COVID did not have a higher ed credential. 90% that are on Medicaid, no higher ed credential. So yesterday I had the pleasure of going to Garrett County presenting the banner to the TikTok winners. I thought I would get that, by the way, but I didn't. But anyway, I got to talk to all the seniors there, and we talked about this. And Richard, your point you made earlier, I think is a crucial point, and that's the messaging. People think they can afford, but it's also on our backs to be more transparent about what they can. So y'all are going to get a chance to see a demo at their next board meeting of our transparency piece, where we list the cost, the net cost, the loan cost, and everything else that's there. So all the things we've talked about before, for those that have been on the council since I've been the president, we're now going to be presenting that to you to show that. So a part of it is that many students don't know that, or many students believe that higher ed is still a four-year degree. And they don't know that a technical certificate or degree or two-year degree is higher ed. So there's a whole lot of work for us to do. But we do know that higher ed is a strategic investment that gives the state a 60-something% return on investment for every dollar they spend. So I don't argue fund us because we've been cut. I argue fund us because we're your best strategic investment to cut down on the other costs that you have to spend. But anyway, other statements before I ask Heather to do a roll call.
President Thompson, I'd like to speak in favor of the proposal or the motion. And my rationale is from a human capital lens. That what makes our universities and colleges great are the people that work in them. And the most talented people that we have working in those institutions have options in the private sector, they have options in other states, they have options in other institutions. So it's critical that we attract and retain some of the most talented people in our state and around the country to work in our institutions of higher education. And as much as we don't like it, we cannot repeal or slow down the law of supply and demand. And you have a labor market that is operating that we need to be able to compete for. So for that reason, I support the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Glass. The other thing I throw in Commissioner Glass and myself, we're working hard to build this pipeline. We got 50.5% of the students graduating from high school going to college. But with the SAID continuum and other items we're working with, along with Lieutenant Governor, workforce cabinet. I mean, this is another route. We've got to get more students to come in from out of state and stay, more students to go inside of our institutions from our public and private high schools. And we've got to get more adult learners. And we've got to even increase our success rates, even though y'all saw it last time, we're about 80% now retention. Who would have ever imagined that at our four-year publics? KCTCS is up to 59%. Graduation rates have increased. So they are doing a really good job around success, but we have to even do a better job. Other statements before I ask Heather to take the roll. Heather, would you mind taking a voice vote, please?
Yes, I went ahead and displayed the motion. Do you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
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 Okay, wonderful. Okay. Mr. Ronald Beal.
No.
One second. All right. Mr. Colby Burks.
Yay.
Mr. Eric Ferris.
Yes.
Ms. Karen Hoover.
Yes.
Mr. Lucas Menzer.
Yes.
Ms. Christy Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Richard Nelson.
No.
Ms. Vidya Ravichandran.
Yes.
Mr. Madison Silvert.
Yes, sorry.
That's okay. Dr. Robert Stack? Let's see if I can help you
Yes.
get on. Okay, wonderful. Let's see. Ms. Doris Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Kevin Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Wright?
No.
Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 yeses.
Thank you, Heather. Motion passed with quorum. Thank you all for this. We know that, and by the way, once again, I appreciate the deep discussion. Our last item on the agenda today is we put together a nominating committee, and I'll ask Richard Nelson to, who chaired that committee, to please put forth the slate of officers that the nominating committee are putting forth.
All right, thank you, Dr. Thompson. The nominating committee did meet on May the 5th to discuss and recommend members to serve as chair and vice chair of the remainder of the current leadership term that expires in January of 2022. And after seeking out nominations and expressions of interest, the committee has unanimously agreed to nominate Lucas Menzer as chair and Eric Ferris as vice chair. And unless there are any questions, Dr. Thompson, I'll turn the meeting back to you for discussion and vote.
I'll take a motion for approval, then and a second, then we'll open it up for discussion, please.
This is Carol on the motion.
I'll
Carol
second.
made the motion. Who
Second.
seconded?
Madison.
Madison seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any nay votes? Well, congratulations, Chair Menzer and Vice Chair Ferris. It is my pleasure, without a doubt, to turn this meeting over to you, Mr. Chair. So thank you all for letting me kind of be in this position for a little while. I felt a lot of power. So I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you all very, very much. I very much appreciate everyone's confidence in me. I will keep these remarks very short in that I will have none right now. So I don't want to drag the meeting on any longer than it needs to be. Although I will say that I look forward to working with everyone here. If you don't have my contact information, I'll make sure to get that out. My email's always open. My phone's always open. Call, text, anytime. I appreciated talking to everyone over the last couple of weeks. So very much looking forward to this. So Heather, if you want to display the upcoming meeting dates for June. Excellent. All right. So our next full council meeting will be in June 25th, and it's planned to be in person at Kentucky State University. So how about that? Being in person, that'll be great. The staff will ensure that all social distancing standards are in place, and we'll hope everyone will be able to show up. Heather will also have teleconferencing options. So if you don't feel comfortable, we totally understand. There'll be teleconferencing options there. If you haven't already done so, take the survey and on board to indicate how you plan to attend so we can plan accordingly. And because today is a special called meeting, we cannot open the floor to any other business. But are there any other comments before we adjourn?
I'd like to say congratulations to Lucas and Eric. Look forward to working with you. Great job, nominating committee. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I look forward to helping Luke out.
I'll need it.
All right, and if you have trouble finding the survey in Onboard, please let me know. It's on the navigation panel on the left side of your page, but I'll be glad to help.
Heather, I will also say some people said they had a problem hearing me. We found out that was due to, in some cases, people wearing earphones and they needed to increase their volume in their earphones. So we did a quick survey a while back, and that's what we found out so far. Others without those didn't have a problem. So Heather, I think that may be the issue when we tell people next time that they need to look at the volume on the earphones.
Dr. Thompson,
Yes.
I'm not using any headphones, and I hear everyone else much louder than I do you.
Yeah, and hardly no one ever says that, Kevin, so I need to
No.
figure out.
Never heard that said. Yeah.
I need to figure out, I need to get my technology folks here, Wayne, to figure out what's going on then, if that's the case. In the past, it was folks with earphones, but Kevin just
Dr.
made.
Thompson, that's the same. I do not have earphones and you're much fainter than everyone else.
Wow, and I'm up on the screen too, so I'm not sure why. We need to fix this, I guess.
We can get you
Thank
some
you
of the
all.
headphones that I have. We can get you hooked up.
Mr. Chair, I think that's all the business
That's all?
for today.
Yep. All right. Well, folks, we appreciate everyone's time. Thank you all very much. And we'll be in touch soon and definitely see everyone in June. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, anybody?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Take it easy, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.